This is Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 12, Episode 19. And welcome to Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network, brought to you by HK. Today is Thursday, December 18th, 2025. As of the recording of this episode, we're fast approaching Christmas and New Year's. And so would like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays for those that don't celebrate Christmas, I guess. But glad to be here today with my friend Dan Brady on the podcast. He's back for another round of, well, either fun or torture, depending on, your point of view. But glad to have you back, sir.
Glad to be here, Riley.
Today we're going to be talking about bad information on social media and dealing with that. I think part of this discussion, I think, Dan, that would be an interesting way of going about would be, how do we vet good sources of information? I think that'd be a good place to end up. We got lots of examples of things that we've encountered over the years, and we'll talk about that and dealing with that. But like ultimately at the end of this episode, I hope people can leave going, okay, where can I find good sources of information? How can I tell what's good or not good? So people can be better judges for themselves, and also do better in their interactions online too, because sometimes it can just be really overwhelming dealing with all of the the bad info that's out there, the trolls and whatnot. Before we get into it, though, today's episode is sponsored, brought to you by Heckler and Koch. HK-USA.com is the US website that I'd point you to learn more about HK products. But we would encourage you to support our sponsors that support us making this possible, what we do. And consider picking up an HK pistol or rifle or whatever. I'll tell you, we've got in our safe back there, Dan, a couple of their HK 416 22s, the 22 long rifles. Those are awesome for a little 22. They're a lot of fun to play with, a lot of fun to plink with, and they're set up pretty much identical to an actual HK 416. So, I mean, even if you have an actual AR-15, they're still a great training tool that are actually dedicated 22 long rifle versions, and lots of fun to shoot with and do some training with at low cost. It's a fun little, and they're not terribly expensive, those 22 long rifle 416s. That might be a fun present to find under the Christmas tree.
Well, if you want to buy me one, go right ahead, Riley. I'm not going to.
Yeah. But we appreciate the support of HK, of the Concealed Carry Podcast. Again, hk-usa.com. Also, today's episode sponsored, brought to you by KSG Armory Holsters. You're going to need a quality holster to carry your HK pistol or other pistols, too, of other makes and brands. We don't discriminate here. In fact, Dan and I, before we went live, we were talking about CZs and Berettas and different things. And I mean, he's carried different guns, and as have I, Glocks and SIGs of all sorts and CZs and all that. But if you're looking for a quality holster, which is important, that's important gear to have. That's actually one thing that Dan and I have debated people on or argued with people on social media about, is quality gear. Well, look no further than KSG Armory Holsters, ksgarmory.com. So, shall we jump into it, sir?
Let's.
All right. Okay, well, so Dan, you and I actually first became acquainted in the Gunternet before we ever met in person.
Yep.
And I don't remember the exact, first interaction, but I do know that once you came on my radar, man, I started seeing you everywhere. Dan Brady, like on all these different posts and groups and different things on social media, right? Pretty quickly I'm like, okay, this guy is, he's my spirit animal. He gets it. He clearly knows what he's talking about. One of the challenges, though, is you don't always know when you're interacting with people online if they actually know what they're talking about. Other than to take them at their face values, to actually read what they're writing and what they're saying and be like, no, I agree with that. That's spot on. But that also comes, from having, experience from other places and other sources for me to
Mhm.
rely upon and go, yeah, that's good information. Not
Yeah.
everybody has that, and that's one of the challenges is we see a lot of bad information proliferated, and not everyone's able to discern what is good or not, or valid or not. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Sure.
it's been my experience with social media and the gun space, specifically with defensive oriented or competition oriented training, which has gotten closer and closer and enmeshed a lot. There used to be a really big um, sort of split between the tactical community and the competition community, and there really wasn't a much of a defensively oriented community. I'm specifically kind of going back to the mid 1990s, when I really started kind of getting into it. And
Hey,
all of
real quick, give us a quick for those that aren't familiar with Dan Brady. Give us a 10-second, 15-second summary of kind of your background. And you just mentioned, kind of when you were getting into things back in the 90s, let's say, like, why should people even pay attention to you, man?
Okay. Yeah, I'm Dan Brady. I work for a company currently called Apache Solutions out of the 3,000 person bustling metropolis of Yadkinville, North Carolina. That's my kind of my side gig, and sort of how I'm known. I do still work full time. I have a full time career. I work for the Department of Defense. I've been a law enforcement officer for 25 years. I was an infantry Marine prior to that, and that's sort of where my background comes from. I got into the defensive space because I didn't see a lot of a lot of training that was focused on the concealed carrier. There was plenty of it that was very law enforcement oriented. There was at the later aughts, say like 2008, 2009, 2010, a lot of folks started coming back from GWAT, and there was an awful lot of chest rig AR-15 training that was available for everyone, and I took plenty of it. I went to Blackwater a number of times, a few other places, and there was a lot of that. But there wasn't a lot of stuff outside of specifically IDPA competition where a concealed pistol was being utilized in a fairly realistic, as realistic as you can get for a training environment anyway, for a square range. There wasn't a huge amount of it. There's a fair amount of it now. You can find basic concealed handgun training basically anywhere. You can find good concealed handgun training most everywhere, but finding the difference between very basic and finding good solid training, that takes a little bit of parsing out. And as social media became more and more and more prolific, I started running into bad information, or at least old information, being continuously propagated, even though those who were staying up with things had kind of moved past it.
Yeah.
That's why I have the focus that I have in whatever social media footprint that I do have. I want people to have the best available information. It's not because it's my information. I've had 3 original thoughts in my entire life, and 2 of them are not able to be shared in any sort of public sphere. This is all stuff that I've pulled from other places, and I'm not trying to attach my name to it or anything else like that. I just want people to have good information. My overriding goal is to shortcut everybody else's learning curve, so you spend less time getting to a highly trained level, you spend less money getting to a highly trained level, and you waste less time and money on gear you don't need and all that kind of stuff. Because I have enormous box of shame of things that I have purchased over the course of the last couple of decades.
You too, huh?
I think it's difficult to pursue any sort of gear intensive hobby without doing that. You can start in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you buy yourself a halfway decent gi and you're pretty solid. You'll go through rash guards every now and again, but after that you're not really worried about gear. You play golf on the other hand, and you're gonna spend a lot of money on some stuff you need, some stuff you don't need. Any gear intensive hobby, you're gonna end up with a box of shame. It's just kind of the way it is. I just want people to end up with fewer things.
There is something interesting about what you just mentioned, by the way, and I don't want to mean to derail us at all. And I appreciate your introduction to yourself and sort of your own personal evolution. But I was just thinking, like, you spoke to something there that I'm also not so much now, but at one time I was a pretty avid golfer. I grew up playing golf, and there you're not wrong about all the gear that you buy over the years in a gear intensive sport or endeavor of some kind. But what I can say about golf gear, I mean, like, yeah, there's some gimmick products out there that, and everybody knows they're freaking gimmicks. But as far as like you buy a set of clubs, you buy, some drivers, woods and things, um, you have a decent putter and a bag to stick everything, and then go buy some balls. Like all of those things work like as they're intended. Like you could buy the cheapest set of clubs and they're still going to work.
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, but there are actual like gun related products, self-defense related products that are billed as being life-saving products that don't actually work and could actually hurt you.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, anyway.
I think one of the things about self-defense, guns in general, that lends itself to the rampant consumerism of, must buy, must consume, is the combination of the types of people who tend to get into this, right? You have, generally speaking, more type A personalities. You have more generally assertive people. And the idea of being able to buy a product to be either better or safer or both, it's extremely alluring for people who are of that mindset. I can make my family safer by having this thing. And then you look at some of the technology stuff that has advanced over the course of, just my time in this, 25, 30 years of being involved in this pursuit. My first concealment holster was a Kramer gun leather holster. Very solid piece of gear. And I swore that, a good horsehide leather holster was the thing for a long, long time. I didn't carry a full Kydex holster until 2012. That's how much I held on to that.
Yeah.
This is, leather's the tradition, and there's, anyway, and now
I think for me, my transition there was probably more like 2014, thereabouts. Like, again, yes, had something that was more, it was leather, and then went to full Kydex. Yeah. Yep. Sorry, not trying to derail you again. And I have so many thoughts, but continue, please.
It's just, you run into this as well. It's one of the things that's kind of gets bantied about online is you have people who are willfully stuck to tradition, leather, iron sights, 1911s, 45 caliber handguns, revolvers, whatever. You have people who are just, it was good enough for granddad, it's good enough for me. And okay, I'm not not saying that that's bad in and of itself. What bothers me is the mindset and the lack of acknowledgement that we have built better mousetraps now. Mm-hmm. There is better stuff out there. I wouldn't have gotten rid of or not carried my Kramer gun leather holster if I hadn't found that objectively Kydex was better. I have objectively measurable stuff as well as subjectively comfort that I made these transitions for very specific reasons. I carried strong side right behind my hip, about 330. I carried strong side until 2017, and I was actually doing a private lesson with one of the young men on the SRT team, my place of work, and we were doing some pistol work, and he showed up and he had a AIWB rig on, and I was like, I'm not really sure about that, blah 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 blah. So we went.
Shoot your junk off.
I didn't go that far because I had recognized, Milt Sparks made an AIWB holster going back in the late 1960s, early 1970s. It was designed to be, carry a Colt Commander forward of the hip. Bruce Nelson had a class called Forward of the Hip going back to like 1983. There's the very famous episode of Miami Vice where Jim's I can't ever say his name. Yeah, Zubiana, and he pulls a 2 to the chest, 1 to the head Mozambique from AIWB in like 1.13 seconds or something. And, that was, I don't know, 1983, 1984. So AIWB is not a brandy new fad thing that started in 2016. It's been around for a long time.
Yep.
But I wasn't convinced of its superiority. So at the end of the lesson, myself and this young man that I was coaching, he's like, "Why don't you give it a try, man? We carry the same gun. We're both carrying a Glock 19. Just throw my rig on, put your gun in it." He said, do a few draws, see how it feels, and kind of start to anchor it in, and then put yourself on a timer. You know what your standard draw to first shot is. Put yourself on a timer, see what you think. And so I did that, and so I did 12 draws. I dropped off the fastest, and I dropped off the slowest, and I averaged the remaining 10. And I just off of maybe 10 or 12 practice draws prior to that, I gained 0.2 seconds on my standard draw to one shot for a hastily aimed shot, changing to AIWB. And I was like, why is it like this? Why do I get to a certain level of competency and then all of a sudden somebody shows me a thing I had not really considered for myself before, and now I have to buy this thing? So the allure of chasing products is sort of how we end up here. But sometimes they are objectively better.
Yeah. What you're touching on right there, though, I think this is a good segue, back into the meat of, not that anything you're talking about is bad at all. This is good stuff. And it creates some context. And actually, this is, I think, a perfect thing that furthers that context of what we're here to discuss. And you just said, "Oh man, why does it have to be like this?" Because like all of a sudden you saw something, hey, this clearly there's some benefit here. I recognize that, but it means I have to like redo things. I have to relearn things. That means work. That means effort. And that is, unfortunately, as humans, we're wired to be lazy, is to be the term that would be used, but which is not untrue. But
I like to refer to us as creatures of inertia.
Yeah, I mean, we like to go with the flow because that's what's always worked, and one of the reasons why is because like eh, we're pretty good, I think, as humans of trying to accomplish the most work with the least amount of effort, which is
Mhm.
basic efficiency,
Yeah.
right? That's a basic survival, level kind of thing. Like we didn't get to where we are as human creatures by being inefficient, really. If we weren't efficient, then we probably would not have survived. So especially when life was a lot harder than it is now. So, like, I relate to that, my man, because I felt very similarly, and it's a common thing that comes up, and I respect especially the old timers, and I mean like older guys who are respected in the industry. I'll give one example. Tom Givens is a good example, right? Uh, and I respect the heck out of Tom. You're a range master certified instructor. I am as well. He's talked like I don't think he has. I know actually I know he doesn't have anything against something like appendix carry,
Nope.
but where does he carry? Right
Carries
over
behind there.
here,
Yep.
right on his hip.
Yep.
And I've heard him opine about that, like, hey, I it works for me, and I don't need to switch it up, kind of thing. And like part of I think what he's saying there, even if he's not saying it is that I don't need to go through the whole rigmarole and all the work and effort of redoing everything that I do,
Yep.
you know? And that's a common response too from dudes that aren't Tom Givens, dudes that don't have decades and decades of actual experience, and education and everything that backs that guy up. And they're just like, works for me.
That's the phrase, right? That's the phrase that it starts to get my blood boiling because it may actually work for you, but when somebody says that to me, I have to ask them, what do you mean by that? Give me some sort of quantifiable data that tells me that it's working for you. And what else have you tried that has also brought quantifiable data in that you can choose with some level of objectivity what actually works for you? And that's to actually answer the first question that we had up here is, how do you vet good information? To me, the first key to vetting good information is, can you provide me data that supports what you're telling me? That's the crux. I can't just say, well, it works for me. We ran into just the other day, yesterday, day before, we ran into somebody on concealed carries, one of the videos, or maybe it wasn't even concealed carry. It was a video
It
of
could have been concealed carry.
it was a video of Rob Leatham
Yeah.
talking about grip, and one guy pipes up of, where do these people come up with this? Not every grip needs to be the same, blah 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 blah. And I remember that Chris Bean piped up and he was like, oh yeah, the world's best pistol shooter ever might not have anything to say about grip and how to effectively grip a handgun. He's literally the best pistol shooter to walk the planet ever. They call him the Great One, for God's sake. if you're going to be that person, if you are going to comment on videos, on especially instructional videos that are taking place, videos that have been posted to places like concealedcarry.com from classes, conferences, lectures, if you're going to say something disparaging, you should probably look at who is pushing out this information just to start with, and who that person is. Google exists. It has existed for a long time. And usually the top 3 or 4 results will net you some real accurate information, especially about who somebody is, if they are teaching a subject. So when you start talking about what an instructor wears to teach a class, or the body type of an instructor who's teaching something, you might want to just check on who that person is first before you open your mouth.
Yeah.
The good information out there is going to come from sources that can give you quantifiable data. They can give you a backstory, a history of how the technique was developed, sort of who initiated it. They can give you specifics of why, body mechanics of why something works better a certain way than the way you learned. If somebody's bio or resume only deals with the fact that they were, a Special Forces Green Beret, or they were a Navy SEAL, or they were a SWAT Bubba, any of those things, I'm not downplaying those experiences by any stretch of the imagination. But we have to look at what kind of context that brings to defensively oriented pistol shooting.
Yeah. I would add to that it's not, just because, because it's kind of like the classic appeal to authority, fallacy, where it's like, well, just because somebody, is, even if they are a recognized authority. I mean, Rob Latham's a great example. I'm glad you brought that up, because that video was, or that exchange was quite comical. It's clear that some people have no clue who they are talking about when they make some of those comments. And you Google Rob Latham, the first thing you're going to get is his website, because I just Googled it just now. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's either number one or number two result, and it's number one. And you could load that website, and quickly you scroll down and look at his page, and you go, oh, 8-time world champion, 34-time national champion. Dude might know a thing or two about shooting. And even then, but even then, here's my point. When we talk about like vetting information and evaluating sources, just because somebody is an authority does not mean that everything they say is truth even. However, it does create a framework or a context where I can take what they're saying and go, well, where is he coming from in offering this advice or this information?
Mm-hmm.
Because clearly he's experienced, and that allows us to frame it in such a way that it's like, okay, I can put that now in a box, and 8-time world champion, 34-time national champion says this about grip. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything he says about grip is the way. However, I put it in the box of, I'm going to pay attention to that, and I'm going to give it a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
Because then what happens, and I'll give you an example that kind of backs you up in this, is in my earlier days of like truly seeking good information, like once I realized it was out there, because I think all of us go through this at some point where we're just in our little bubble.
Mm-hmm.
You come up, you're just a baby cop, you're just getting started, and you think you know some stuff, but you're just in your little bubble, and then like one day something opens your eyes and you go, whoa, there's like more stuff out there. And for me, I remember stumbling upon a random YouTube video. And this is like in the early 2010s, like 2011 maybe, 2000, yeah, probably about 2010, 2011, somewhere in that ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually a video of Jerry Michalek shooting, and then also there was a little bit of an explanation. I really wish I could find the original video that I remember, but in my mind I kind of have this image, right? And he's explaining something that he's doing with his grip in this video. And I had never heard anything like that before. And so it sounded very foreign to me, which I know that's how some of this content, like you're using an example, it actually wasn't a concealed carry video of Rob Latham. It was some other random page that I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
but it could have been one of ours for all you know, because we we've got AJ Zito.
Mm-hmm.
We got multiple reels of AJ. Also, I mean, he's not a Rob Latham, but he's also a very highly skilled shooter and instructor.
Yep.
And people are coming on there and be like, "This is the dumbest thing I ever heard. What he's saying about grip," and it's like that's kind of how it was for me. Not necessarily I was saying it was dumb, but I just remember this video, and I'm like, "What he's saying about grip, just like that, I've never heard that before." And so it's kind of in this, you know, like, what do I do with that? Like, is it icky? Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. At the same time, there's a video of him demoing shooting really, really freaking fast. you know, so it's like, well, there must be something to this, and that's when I like first started paying attention. And so then one of the next things I stumbled upon was early videos of Mike Seeklander also teaching and talking about grip. And so going back to the Rob Latham thing, it's like, okay, I put that in a little box and I give that some consideration and some weight because, well, there's something to this, and he's got some credentials, some authority that backs that up. Now I see this video from Mike Seeklander, and he's explaining grip like this. It's like, who's this Mike Seeklander guy? Google him, read up on him. Oh, okay, dude knows a thing or two. I mean, he's got some experience. Doesn't mean he knows everything. No, but okay, put that in a box. Pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to that. Oh, and then 3 months later, stumble upon a video from. I remember another early video from Bob Vogel. Now, a little bit of a dirtier name now because of recent arrests that he has had, but him talking about grip and a very, very different approach to these other guys. And I'm like, but dude has also won world and national titles. Ooh, put this in a box. And now you start comparing and cross, like referencing this information, and you go, okay, there's some things that are the same.
Yeah.
And I'm just using grip as one simple example, but that's how I have started to formulate my little kind of library or database of information from good sources.
Yeah. That the approach there is really is one that's really, really good, of taking information that you get online and understanding who is putting it out, understanding where they are coming from, and when they have, 30 championships, when they have, significant relevant experience, to give that some weight and continue to seek other information. And once you get a Venn diagram that has enough circles that overlap,
Yes,
all that stuff in the middle probably has a high percentage of truth with a capital T. The stuff that overlaps those multiple circles, that's where it is. That's the kind of thing that you really want to assimilate. I remember, staying on the grip subject, the thing that really got my attention to altering how I gripped a handgun was actually Tim Herron.
Mm-hmm.
And when he talks about maintaining grip pressures consistently being more important than the strength behind the grip, that really caught my attention. And the reason it caught my attention is because he's half of your and my size, and he shoots better, more accurately, and faster than I do. And I'm like, but I got told that gorilla grip in the gun would hold it really steady and really still, and I'd be able to shoot faster. And, Tim just kind of blows that away by being a tiny little human who doesn't over grip the gun, and he just rails on that trigger, and bullets all go in the exact same place.
Yep.
He's the guy who came up with the Tim Herron bill drill to the credit card box in the head of a USPSA and still in under 2 seconds, which is something I still have yet to replicate.
Same. Yep.
But yeah, so what should you do researching? What should folks do finding new information? Find out who it is who's propagating the information. The internet is a pretty good tool to find out who people are and what relevance they have to the information that they're propagating. If you click on somebody's Facebook profile in a comment that they make that is espousing something or another, and all of their pictures that they have on their social media is patriotic AI generated content of bald eagles and M1 Abrams tanks and whatever else that's out there, maybe they're not the greatest source of information. If everything that they put out there is videos of them shooting at a very high level, then maybe that's something that you want to put a little bit more weight on, and then just continue to surf through the associated and attached people to those individuals when they have overlapping social, shared friends. Riley, I think you and I have like 287 friends in common on Facebook or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
Maybe if those 287 people are saying the same thing about a subject, maybe there's something to that. So
Yes. Yep. It's what we call in the law enforcement world
a
clue.
clue.
But part of the problem with that, though, is you've got, Joe Bob, instructor dude in make up some small town, Yadkinville, North Carolina, backwoods of North Carolina. You got Joe Bob, tactical instructor dude that did 4 years in the military teaching concealed carry classes.
Mm-hmm.
And he says something like, here's an example. This is an actual quote from somebody on the concealed carry page. And this is one of the screenshots, I think, that you sent. I load one hollow point, then one flat nose, then FMJ, then one hollow point, one flat nose, FMJ, continuously till it's full. And then somebody replied to this fellow. I'm not saying, by the way, that this guy on Facebook is Jim Bob instructor dude. Maybe he is. I've had many people say similar things and then claim, well, I'm an NRA instructor. Anyway, somebody calls him out and says, why?
Yep.
And his response, well, I think it covers all the bases. But also, if I have to shoot through a wall, I want to be able to.
Yeah.
And you got dozens and dozens and dozens of people like that will say similar things. And so your logic, what you just said a moment ago, is, well, there's a bunch of these guys saying this. So maybe that's also a clue. I mean, I'm playing a little devil's advocate with you here, Dan.
Yeah. And my question to that individual would be like, how much do you know about ballistics testing of pistol rounds? What do you know about ballistics testing? And if their answer was, I shot through some plywood, into 14 wet phone books, and it penetrated this far, and look. You can think what you want about the politicalization of the FBI as an investigative agency, all the upper echelon stuff that has occurred with the FBI and various politicians. Say what you want. The FBI does more pistol ballistics testing than any other organization on the planet. They do a lot of it. And their ballistics testing protocols were born out of the Miami shootout in 1986,
yeah.
Which, when you're talking about shooting for blood, when you're talking about defensively oriented pistol craft, the stuff that does really well in all of the FBI's ballistics testing protocols. Maybe that's a clue. Maybe that's a box that you should put some weight on. You look at other ballistic sources that are out there. You look at Chris Baker from Lucky Gunner,
Yep.
right? He does a ton. Lucky Gunner does a ton of ballistics testing, even more oriented towards the concealed carrier, right? Their test barrels are much shorter test barrels than the standard barrels used by the FBI. So if you don't, if you're not like Riley and me and you don't carry a full size H&K, and you carry something that's got a 2 3/4 or a 3-inch barrel, something along those lines, then maybe Lucky Gunner is some of the ballistics testing that you should look at. Maybe you should look at folks who've actually gone to and done a lot of autopsies on people who have been shot. What do they carry? People like Dr. Gary K. Roberts, Doc GKR.
Yep.
Tons and tons of knowledge on pistol ballistics. If I look at all three of these separate entities that do an incredible amount of testing on this specific thing, and I say, oh, well, all of these go with either one of these three pistol bullets, right? They either carry Spear Gold dots, or they carry Federal HSTs, or they carry Hornady critical duties. If all of these sources say that basically the same thing, it's worth further investigating down that particular rabbit hole to find out why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's how you find good information.
Yep, I agree, and I would add to this that learning the skills of critical thinking is a good one. And I know that's challenging because I'm sure there are people out there that think they're good critical thinkers, but and aren't. And the thing is like kind of what you're touching on there as you were wrapping up your statement. It's like if we run things to as best we can, like let's take a premise of some kind, okay, a statement like, well, I carry FMJs in my gun in case I need to shoot through a wall. All right, and I have a threat that I need to shoot through a wall. Which, by the way, I mean, is that a valid thing? Yeah, I mean, I actually have a friend who is a cop who engaged in a shooting with a bad guy and had to shoot him through a wall. And that's because bad guy was known to be behind said wall. It was a changing room in like a clothing store. Bad guy was known to be in said changing room, and bad guy started shooting at officer friend through changing room door or wall. So returned fire through said wall. Like, okay, so that sort of thing happens. Now, as a law enforcement context, but all right. Anyway, but here's the thing: like, if we run this fully through to its conclusion, and that's really what critical thinking is all about. Is okay. Well, let's put aside the veracity, the viability, the tactical problem of shooting through a wall, especially when we don't know what's on the other side. Let's just look at the ammunition. Guys are like, well, I can't use a hollow point to shoot through that wall because is it a penetration issue? Is it because the hollow point won't expand once it passes through that wall? Which could be. Some do better than others, depending on the materials, right? But then here's the thing. I load FMJs. Well, if a hollow point fails to expand after passing through a wall, guess what it's going to perform like? An FMJ. So, like, I'm just giving one simple example of like critical thought here of, well, I need to punch through, and when people talk about shooting through walls, I assume they're not talking about shooting through CMU, block walls, because almost anything out of a pistol is not going to do particularly well going through CMU, block or brick.
Nope.
So I'm assuming, we're talking drywall and maybe some wood. if we happen to hit a stud. Maybe a metal stud, but even that's not going to do much. They're, low. Anyway. So it's like, yeah. So what's your point here? And so we just got to think our way through things. And I see a lot of comments thrown out there that are examples of people not really thinking through things. Another example, this is from, again, the ammo discussion. Somebody saying they carry what their friend calls church loads.
Oh, this one. Oh, goodness.
Frangible bullets. Okay. And then says,
yeah.
So, and here, okay. And by the way, there was a comment from Justin on Facebook. He said, like, these guys know the FBI actually conducts ballistic tests. Well, that may be true. But Justin, I have also seen people quote, FBI, and it's not actually the FBI they're quoting. They're not actually even quoting anything. They're just quoting something made up, and they say it came from FBI, from the FBI or from their testing protocols. But this is kind of almost an example of that, where you got a guy saying there's 20 or so times that frangible bullets have been used, and they have been proven to be about 90% effective in stopping the bad guy with only one shot. And all you have to do is only worry about hitting him and not what's behind him. Break this one down for me, Dan.
So for those who don't know, frangible ammunition is essentially just very tightly packed powder inside of a jacketed round. That's all it is. It was designed to be able to shoot steel targets at close range and not have what is referred to as spall come back at you and injure you. Anybody who spent any appreciable amount of time on a range where there is steel has caught some spall from an FMJ round or a flat nose or even a full lead. Has caught some splashback from a piece of steel that was cratered or that was slightly out of spec, that was warped. You were standing at a slight angle to it at distance. And I've caught jacketing, under my eye pro. I've caught it in the neck. In the summertime, I've caught it in my shins, my ankles. I've seen it draw blood. Which is why we wear the eye pro. That could be a very, very serious injury. But if it hits you in the hands, it hits you in the face, it's like nicking yourself shaving. It's a little something. It's not much. The stuff is designed to come apart quickly. Human beings are not homogeneous. We have lots of different densities in our tissue, but bone is really hard stuff, and the real important stuff inside of a human's chest cavity and inside our heads is hidden behind some real thick, hard bone. You don't always get to pick the angle at which your target presents itself in a defensive shooting context. One of the reasons that the FBI's protocols require an average depth of penetration between 12 inches and 18 inches on the minimum and maximum. Well, if you 12 inches minimum, well, how many human beings are 12 inches from, the front of their chest to the back of their spine? There's most of your large human beings are guys my size or Riley's size, sure. But I'm pretty certain if I went like this on, our friend Tim Herron, I wouldn't have 12 inches between my hands. Ballistics gelatin is calibrated, but it is not the same depth of penetration as a human being. It is created for an apples to apples comparison of what this bullet does to this gelatin at this distance behind this barrier. That's all it's really there for. But there is a correlation, a very strong correlation between how bullets perform through ballistics gelatin and how they do in actual shootings with human beings as the recipients of those rounds. Very strong correlation. That's about as concise as I can make that. There's way more to it. You can literally write PhD dissertations on this stuff. So that's a long rabbit hole to dive down. Feel free. Go ahead. But the whole thing about frangible ammunition is it does not penetrate deeply enough, consistently enough to be used against human beings with any degree of reliability. Tom Givens talks about this, something similar in one of his lectures during one of the Rangemaster instructor classes. Is a shooting that took place in a jewelry store in Los Angeles, where the purveyor was given a specific kind of round. It was a Glaser safety slug, which are supposed to act very similarly to a frangible round. They're supposed to enter and then dissipate the energy much more quickly. And this good guy shot the bad guy, and he shot him directly under the nose, right on top of his teeth. And police came, arrested the guy and everything else like that. They took him to the hospital, and they literally just lifted up his lip, took what was left of the round out. The dude didn't even lose his teeth. They put a Band-Aid on his lip and sent him to jail. That was the extent of what happened with that bullet that was fired from just several feet. It wasn't even a significant amount of distance away. That dude walked away with a Band-Aid on his lip after being shot in the face. If you have to shoot an other person, you want your rounds that you use to be reliable in getting to vital structures in the human body to make that individual stop the actions that they are doing that made it a legal and moral requirement for you to shoot them to begin with.
Yeah. Yep.
Does that answer your question, Riley?
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I was just going to add to that what you said. This one example we were just pulling from, they specifically said they quoted statistics. Dan, they quoted statistics 20 times or more that frangible rounds have been used and have been 90% effective at stopping with one shot. Folks, like, if you hear statistics like that, ask where the heck that comes from.
78.3% of statistics are made up right there on the spot. Yeah. When somebody quotes something like that, they say, they largely will say, no, it's statistically proven. You should look it up. Where do you want me to look that up? Because I'm going to need a reference on that. You mentioned earlier that people say stuff about the FBI. Well, the FBI statistics show that, your average civilian shooting takes place, 3 yards, 3 rounds, 3 seconds or less. Where do you find that in any FBI archives? Because the FBI doesn't track civilian defensive gun usage. They never have. So where are you getting those statistics? Because it's not from the FBI. It's not.
Right. Yep.
I have no problem with folks using statistics. Let's just have them be real, and the sources that you're citing have some sort of documentation to back up those statistics. I have a tough time with the idea of it being quote unquote statistical data anyway, because most of it is not collected under academically rigorous circumstances. Most of it's very anecdotal when it comes to that. You look at John Correa from Active Self-Protection. He's collected a vast database of defensively oriented gun usages. And even he'll say this isn't statistically relevant data, but there's a strong correlation with blah, 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 whatever it happens to be. I find that more intellectually honest than people who are like, well, statistics say.
Mm-hmm.
Do that? Do they though? Do they?
But here's the thing with statistics, like, and you used the phrase just a moment ago where you said, not that you were saying this, but you were saying like what other people have said to you and to me. Well, it's statistically proven. Statistics don't prove things.
Nope.
Statistics are just numbers and data that we can extrapolate from, trends and groups of data points and different things that we can then infer. Like you just said, what you said was, statistically relevant was a phrase you just used about, hey, does this have relevance to an issue here or not? It's Yeah, statistics are just statistics. They don't prove a dang thing. They can give us good confidence of a thing having relation to something else or correlation, perhaps even some causation. But even then, usually we don't say that statistics proves anything. We may say that statistics show a cause or a linkage
Mm-hmm.
between things, and even that needs to be verified
Yeah.
by additional statistical studies. That because once you can show that, well, we did this study and we did this study and we did this study, and a lot of times people do studies of studies to show that the methodology that was followed, still held out, it still bears out the data that was that came out of that study. So anyway, I like
So
statistics, I like data, but we got, people got to be careful about, what they take from that.
the to quote our example here, 20 times and 90%, blah 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 blah, whatever it was with frangible ammunition. If you look at the statistics of it, ice cream sales are linked to shark attacks. All right, the higher the ice cream sales, the more shark attacks there are. Why? Well, because both of those things happen during the warmer months of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Ice cream sales go up, people go into the ocean, more shark attacks happen. Ice cream sales don't cause shark attacks, and shark attacks don't increase ice cream sales. We need to look at everything that is around the subject matter. We can't just take a statistic that somebody throws out there. You're going to have to show me all 20 of those shootings that have occurred where frangible ammunition was utilized, because number one, I don't buy that. And number two, just because it did happen doesn't make it a best practice. Best practices are those that have a high degree of statistical confidence in a positive result. The comment that I have gotten when I point these sort of things out of, I don't know that utilizing a frangible ammunition round is a really good idea defensively. And the retort I have often got is, well, you wouldn't stand in front of it and let me shoot you with it. Yeah, I wouldn't stand in front of you if you had a super soaker full of piss either. It doesn't make it a good defensive option. We need to have some good data, behind our reasoning.
And can I just put it out there that as somebody that has actually tested, and I'm not saying it was done in a laboratory controlled environment or anything like that, but somebody that has actually fired frangible ammunition through different mediums, which is me, because I was curious. This was a number of years ago. I just wanted to see what would happen. I can tell you that frangible ammunition is designed to break up, and it literally turns into basically dust when it strikes things like steel, concrete, other really hard surfaces. But drywall and 2x4s, I've seen it go straight through. I've seen it go straight through drywall, 3.5 inches of 2x4, Douglas fir pine or pine or whatever, and then back through drywall and continue downrange and continue to go through stuff. So anyway, for those of you that are like, yeah, frangible ammunition, that's a good idea. So, inside a house, it'll be safer, right? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Until it strikes something that's really hard, it's not as safe as what you think.
Yep.
So, we're at an hour, but I wanted to ask you some questions here.
Yep.
Why do you do what you do online, Dan? Why do you engage in all these online discussions and debates, even, and arguments?
I accepted a long time ago that the person I'm arguing with, they're not going to change their mind. That nothing that I say is going to get that person to change their mind, especially once they become defensive about their position. That they have no intention of changing their mind. The reason I engage in it is because people read it, and someone who reads that will be like, never thought of that before. And that person will go down a rabbit hole. They'll research, they'll find more useful information, and perhaps they will undertake some additional professional training. They will do some more rigorous investigation in what they should be carrying as a defensive load. They will start to get a better understanding of the advantages of a red dot sight. They will realize that revolvers aren't the magical reliability machines that they have been told that they are. Whatever it is, somebody in that audience will get something positive out of it. Somebody will get good information out of it. And yeah, the Tony Kim right here. That's how I met Dan, heroically fighting on Reddit, right? That's how I met Tony is fighting in the Reddit CCW, and he, to his credit, was like, interesting, and he extrapolated on what I was saying and went down an investigative rabbit hole and changed his mind about something. Very, very, very odd occurrence, but it does happen. Like I said at the beginning of this, my whole entire purpose in this realm is to shortcut everybody else's learning curve who will listen, who will find good information. And that's all that matters to me. I'm not going to change everyone's mind. I'm going to get a ton of pushback from folks who are having an emotional investment in their rightness. Yeah. That is going to happen. But communities grow one person at a time. One person at a time. That's all that matters, is that I help one person at a time. That's all that matters to me. My personal definition of success comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who wrote a short poem about success. And it ends with, to know that one life has breathed easier because you have been here. This is to have succeeded. And that's how I measure it. Is somebody's life better in the defensively oriented pistol realm? Is there one person whose life is better because I added something to it? Then I win. I have succeeded in my goal.
You quoted that recently. I don't remember exactly where, in another post online somewhere, and I love that, man. I love that. I feel very similarly, and I would say that's also why I frequently engage in similar discussions online, because I have seen the exact same thing. I've seen people messaged me privately so many times. Thank you, Riley, so much for sharing that, for putting this, this tidbit of info out or that. Um, and it keeps coming up. I've shared it a few times now. I didn't know there was a word for it until fairly recently. Brandolini's law, which is the amount of effort it takes to counter bad information is infinitely greater than the effort it takes to put out the bad information in the first place.
Orders of
Um,
men.
yes, because it's just so easy for anybody to just bleh online, say
Mhm.
whatever they want, just vomit on the Facebook page, or the social media town hall of just bleh, because there's zero effort in doing that. Meanwhile, those of us that care, and we care because, at least in the concealed carry space, this stuff actually is and can be life-saving,
Yeah.
life-altering,
Yep.
life-changing
Yep.
information. Uh, somebody's got to fight those battles. Somebody's got to, and it takes a ton of effort.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we can't win them all, not even
Nope.
close. But those few that we win here and there, the Tony Kims, of the world, and others. There's many others like them that, I've gotten their messages. Thank you. You helped me get on the right path.
Hmm.
Um, I can think of another person that I've seen grow quite substantially in their skills, but also their mindset and understanding. And that is, I'll name drop here. That's Alec Pelkey,
Yep.
right? That
Yep.
dude he's come a long ways, from
I
when I,
love that dude. I love Alec. He's a real good guy. His heart's always been in the right place.
yes.
Uh, and he's one of those people that you kind of had to metaphorically hit him in the face with a 2x4 to get his attention. But once you have his attention, he's very attentive to it, and he's really come a very, very long way. He was in my low light class not that long ago, and it was the second or third time that he'd taken my low light class. And when he shot the challenge drill that I do at the or near the end of the class for a prize, I thought I was giving away a flashlight that night. He shot it clean. Everything was clean about it. He was just that far off, just that far. I thought I was giving away a flashlight.
Mhm.
It was really well done. And the first time I saw him shoot that challenge drill, it was hot garbage. It was bad. And I know he's not going to mind me saying that publicly.
Yeah.
He's come a very long way, and I'm insanely proud of him.
Yeah. Likewise. I think a good place to kind of wrap this up would be with some, I guess, a pieces of advice, and that would be, what would be your advice to people online, on social media, on YouTube, Reddit, whatever? How can we be a positive force for good in the online space?
This is the primary thing that I struggled with at the start. Is I would get defensive, and I'd take an aggressive tone, in call it 80 or 90% of circumstances. Taking an aggressive tone is it's really uncalled for, and it is going to be not only off-putting to the person that you're talking to, but to the audience who is reading it. As people who are putting out good information, we get a lot more flies with honey than vinegar. Yes, there are those people who are immediately negative and disparaging. The people who were making fun of AJ's weight, or body build in the videos on concealedcarry.com. Those people aren't worth being polite to. Those people are worth the ad hominem attacks, and just going directly after them, and trying to make them feel this big. because they started it. When people say things clearly from a uninformed standpoint, I get this from Chris Bean, ask them why. Why? Be curious about their how they came to that conclusion or how they came to that understanding. If we're curious and we ask more questions, we become Socratic about it and use as open language as we possibly can. It's going to invite more people into the tent, right? It's going to bring more people into the training realm. That's what I think we kind of need to focus on is what Patrick Swayze said in Roadhouse, right? Be nice until it's time to not be nice.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's good advice. It's also what I try to abide by. Like you said, honey versus vinegar. Um, and to your point, your earlier point about one of your main motivations is not necessarily about changing the mind of the person you're interacting with online, but for the benefit of those that are following along, that are sitting there num 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 on their popcorn, but are taking it in, and they're like, "Oh, that's a good point, Dan." And you win the hearts and minds of those people, but it's very easy to alienate even those people if our approach is not, you know, very gentlemanlike. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's, oh, by the way, I'll share a personal story here in just a brief moment of vulnerability. And it kind of brings us full circle to one of the earlier parts of this discussion, which had to do with Rob Latham, uh, who I've known for a number of years. And knowing him as long as I have, and having seen him in a number of interactions personally, even he can be a little bit of a polarizing figure because there's been some things that he's said or done that I didn't necessarily agree with, and that's okay. But I remember one time, I consider him a mentor. I did a Facebook post on a subject, and it made him unhappy. And he called me like within minutes of me making that post. I was like, wow, he saw that post, and boom, my phone rings, and I'm like, oh, Rob. I answer the phone. And I'm not going to go into the details of what this was all even about, but I'll leave you with what he said, and it has stuck with me ever since. And he said, I thought of you more highly, enough that like I just think that you should be a positive, a net positive for the world in what you put out there into the world. And I was just like, okay, so his whole point was like basically, stop trying to be, this this rage bait, master, like just getting everybody mad at each other on controversial subjects. He's like, focus on trying to make the world a better place and helping people be better and stronger and faster and smarter and all those things. And I was like, it's a good point. And I took that to heart. And I mean, I'm not perfect, but I have made an effort to change my approach in many ways, to abide by that advice that I received, to be that net positive force for good and change in the world, especially about those things I'm passionate about, which happen to be shooting, guns, self defense, concealed carry. So I'm going to keep trying to do that, and I know that you will too, and I hope others watching get something out of this as well, and are able to be a net positive force in the world.
All about it.
Final words, anything else?
Yeah, anybody and everybody watching this, find a couple of good sources of information. Look at the people that Riley and I associate with. Find somebody who resonates with you, and learn. And don't have an emotional attachment to a piece of gear or a technique or a thing. Does it genuinely work under 99.9% of the circumstances that you can really come up with. And if it does, great, stick with it until something better comes along. We're in a technological golden age, and we're continuously building better mousetraps.
Yep.
Once you have a mousetrap that works really well for you, still be willing to try other stuff.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Agreed. That being curious and willing to experiment and try new things, honestly, is a big way. That's a big reason why I've even got to where I am.
Agreed.
So, like, I tried the Bob Vogel grip. I tried the Mike Seeklander grip. I tried the Rob Latham grip. I tried all the different grips, just using that again as an example. And now I have the Riley Bowman grip, which is an amalgamation of all those things. So it's not just what's comfortable for me.
and that's kind of the big difference, right? Does it work for you, or is it comfortable for you? There's those can be the same thing, but they can also be very, very different things. Have some objective data to fall back on if you say it works for you.
Yeah.
My buddy at work, Ranson, he said one time to a young man on the range, he said, "Is that your best?" And the kid was like, "Yeah, that's my best." He said, "You should try someone else's best because your best sucks." So yeah, that's Ransom for you. But anyway,
That's good stuff.
We'll leave it at that.
Awesome, brother. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in and being a part of this episode of the Concealed Carry Podcast. A reminder of our episode sponsors, HK, hk-usa.com, and KSG Armory Holsters, which are found at ksgarmory.com. Thank you for our sponsors' support that make this possible. I also want to recognize Dan and everything he does, and the place you can find his classes and all that. The company he works for is Apache Solutions. Their website is apachenc.com. I got that right, correct?
Yep.
Apache. If you don't know how to spell Apache, okay, APACHENC.com. I know spelling is hard for a lot of people, so that's why I spell a lot of things.
It's hard for me. That's why I put it on my clothes,
So check them out. Follow them. If you're in the North Carolina area or are willing to travel there, or occasionally you'll find them on the road in different places too, including, I know that you frequently are at some of the training conferences around the country. Folks, look them up, find them. Tim Kelly, Dan, other guys there, Derek, the whole team, wonderful folks at Apache Solutions. So thank you for your time today, Dan, and your expertise. It's been a pleasure as always. So folks, appreciate your support in also liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing to the Concealed Carry Podcast. Spreading the word helps us get out there more, and hopefully we get good information in the hands of more people and change lives. So we appreciate those shares and likes, subscribes, and all those things. And if you'd like to share with us your take, your input, your comments, your questions directly, anything for us feedback-wise, for you, or if you just want to contact us, you can hit us up at podcast@concealedcarry.com. With that, we will sign off. Until next time, a reminder to train right, train often, and train safe, so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true.